On the 24th of February 2022, the world awoke to the first large-scale European war in almost 80 years, as Russia commenced a full-scale invasion of neighbouring Ukraine. The Russian military is the most capable and by far the largest in Europe. Only China and the United States have comparable militaries. With approximately 200,000 troops along Ukraine's border, along with over 30,000 pro-Russian separatists in Luhansk and Donetsk, it had a notable numerical advantage over the 169,000 strong Ukrainian ground forces. Its fleet of helicopters, tanks, combat aircraft and artillery is also equally larger, if not massively larger, than those of Ukraine. Furthermore, in addition to its traditional advantage of superior numbers, Russia, for the first time in its history, possesses state-of-the-art weapons. Its equipment broadly has the edge or is without equal to the Ukrainian equipment. Most notably, its supersonic caliber cruise missiles proved devastatingly effective in the opening salvos of the war. Russia also possessed the advantage of having tested these weapons and new strategies during the initial Ukrainian conflict in 2014-2015 and its intervention in Syria during the later half of the 2010s. Many of the elite troops who would spearhead the invasion of Ukraine also had experience or were battle-hardened by these wars, giving Russia every advantage. However, at the end of the first week, it is clear the Ukrainian military has not broken, and the Russians have achieved very limited objectives for heavy losses at this stage of the war. So how, with all these advantages, have the Ukrainians been able to hold off the Russian bear? Welcome to the Watchman's broadcast, and today we will be assessing how Ukraine has been able to hold on in the face of what seemed to be an overwhelming Russian onslaught. Though Russia is attacking Ukraine as a whole, its objective does not appear to be an annexation of the entire country. Its priority is to neutralise the Ukrainian military as a long-term threat to the pro-Russian separatists in eastern Ukraine, who it claims to be invading on behalf of, and to secure its ports in Crimea. However, while large military efforts have been made in southern and eastern Ukraine by the Russians, there was also a major one from the north towards the Ukrainian capital, Kiev. Though at face value it would seem Kiev has no relevance to either of the objectives mentioned above, it is clear Russia hoped a hard, fast strike to take the capital may allow them to decapitate Ukraine's leadership before the Ukrainians had a chance to organise an effective defence. This would ultimately shorten the war and make the harder battles in the east much more favourable to the Russians. Of course, the only way to attack the city so far from the jump-off points of the invasion was by air. This is exactly what the Russians did, deploying large numbers of VDV infantry or paratroopers via helicopter to take the airports around Kiev so more men and supplies could then be airlifted in to exploit the situation. However, such a tactic is high risk, with helicopters being vulnerable to handheld rockets or man-pads. Just ask the Americans about Mogadishu in 1993. Around 6 Russian transport helicopters were reportedly lost before they had even reached their objectives, and with 20 or 30 men in each helicopter, that's around 150 well-trained paratroopers who never made it to the fight. Not to mention, when the VDV landed, they found themselves facing a strong counterattack, and though they fought well, claiming to have killed over 200 men at one of Kiev's airports, they did not secure their objective. But rather than acknowledge this go-for-broke strategy had failed, the Russians kept diverting resources to try and make it succeed. Indeed, during the first 3 days, the fighting in Kiev was not due to columns of Russian tanks driving into the city, but due to paratroopers and special forces being dropped into it. Thus, more elite Russian troops died trying to salvage the situation, and losses only mounted. 2 transporter planes carrying 240 VDV between them were shot down, so with the fierce ground battle factored in, the Russians probably lost 1,000 of their best men for no strategic victory in return. To exacerbate the issue, the Russian ground forces attacking across the Belarusian border towards Kiev do not seem to have been able to keep the momentum of their advance to compensate. Though Ukrainian resistance has played a part in this, it is also clear logistically the Russians have not been able to properly fuel their tank force to enact an effective Plan B to the VDV's all-out assault. Many Russian tanks have been found abandoned intact, with no other explanation as to why their crews have left them, see links in the description, beyond lack of fuel to sustain such a large armoured thrust. Though we can only speculate as to why that is at this point, some have indicated that the tyres on Russian wheeled vehicles are in fact poor quality Chinese tyres, and in the muddy thaw season, or Rasputsa, the tyres have burst on the rough terrain, thus the supply train cannot keep up with the advancing tanks. Another is that Russia does not have the budget to maintain all its vehicles, armoured or soft-skinned, at any one time. Due to the apparently rushed nature of the invasion, vehicles of all kinds are consequently breaking down. This has not been helped by the fact 3 Russian commanders have been killed, certainly in one case due to these issues. Major General Andrei Sukovetsky is believed to have been killed by sniper fire while surveying the front near Mariupol, no doubt leading to further demoralization and disorganization of Russian troop movements. Whatever the reality, it does not appear that this old deficiency of the Red Army to neglect logistics has been remedied in the modern Russian army. Not to mention, despite the impressive impact of Russia's Caliber cruise missiles, somehow, despite the element of surprise, they failed to take out the Ukrainian Air Force. Though numbering only 84 combat aircraft and 35 helicopter gunships, the Ukrainian Air Force has been active throughout the first week of this conflict, despite the fact of a complete destruction of its aircraft and air bases should have been the first objective of Russian cruise missile and air attacks. For perspective, within 2 days of the 2003 invasion of Iraq, the US and British air forces had destroyed the Iraqi air force on the ground. Yet, it was Ukrainian helicopters that helped retake one of Kiev's airports, and Ukrainian fighters have claimed to shoot down several Russian jets to such a point, the rumour of the Ukrainian ace who allegedly shot down 6 Russian jets in one day, the Ghost of Kiev, cannot be dismissed. As of the 5th of March, the Russians themselves claim to have destroyed 62 combat aircraft and 7 helicopters. Though this is almost twice the number of casualties the Russian Air Force has received in return, it is a meagre tally for one of the world's most advanced air forces, against an enemy equipped with a limited number of 1980 Soviet aircraft and so close to Russia's border. To make matters worse, the poor Russian logistics in the first week were hampered further due to Ukrainian drone strikes, and though not crippling, have caused further delays in some areas. Why these drones are still flying at little more than 100 miles an hour and have not been shot down at such a rate Russian fighter pilots should consider it a sport, has no clear answer. All of this has allowed Ukraine to put up stronger resistance and granted them more confidence in their ability to fight back against the invasion, alongside other things, namely things that are very good at killing tanks. But you will have to wait until the next broadcast for that one, I'm afraid. If you wish to see more content in the meantime, please see my in-depth video on the different Middle Eastern intervention strategies employed by Russia and the USA, and like and subscribe for more videos. Have a pleasant day.